This is a forest in the middle of Siberia, or at least it used to be. In 1908, something detonated in the sky above this spot with the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, the largest explosion in recorded human history. It should have left a crater the size of a city. Instead, it left nothing. No crater, no meteorite, no wreckage of any kind, and after more than a century, no one has been able to explain it. This is the Tunguska Event, and it began on one ordinary morning in the most remote place on Earth. 7:14 in the morning, June 30th, 1908.
In 3 seconds, 80 million trees were flattened across 2,000 square kilometers. The fireball was visible from 600 kilometers away. Seismic shock waves circled the Earth. Twice. For 3 nights, the skies over Europe glowed so brightly you could read a newspaper at midnight. It was the largest impact event in recorded human history. An explosion 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And more than a century later, we still don't know what caused it. The stony Tunguska River winds through central Siberia, a place so remote that in 1908, the nearest town was 700 kilometers away. The people who lived there, indigenous Evenki reindeer herders, Russian fur traders, were accustomed to isolation. Silence, cold, at 7:14 in the morning. That silence ended. Witnesses described a column of blinding blue light, brighter than the sun itself. It moved north to south, fast, and then it detonated. Not on the ground, in the air. At an altitude of roughly 8 kilometers, the object, whatever it was, vaporized. The blast flattened trees for over 2,000 square kilometers, an area larger than London. At ground zero, trees were stripped of every branch, every leaf, scorched and bare, like a forest of telephone poles. The heat was so intense that reindeer herders 60 kilometers away felt their skin burn through their clothes. Seismic stations across Russia and Western Europe registered the blast. Atmospheric pressure waves swept across the planet. And then, the night skies over Europe began to glow. For 3 nights, the entire northern hemisphere experienced what scientists now call bright nights. The atmosphere was so saturated with dust and ice that it reflected sunlight even at midnight. From London to Berlin to Stockholm, the darkness never fully arrived. Nobody went to investigate. For 19 years, Leonid Kulik was a Russian mineralogist with an obsession. In 1921, while cataloging meteorites for the Soviet Academy of Sciences, he stumbled on old newspaper clippings about the Tunguska Event. The accounts were wild, contradictory, but one thing was clear. Something enormous had happened in Siberia, and nobody had studied it. After 2 failed attempts, in 1927, Kulik finally reached the blast zone. He had traveled 6,000 kilometers by train, by boat, by sled, on foot. What he found defied explanation. An entire forest, millions of trees, lying in a radial pattern, pointing outward from a central point like spokes on a wheel. The unmistakable signature of a massive explosion. But there was no crater. Meteor impacts leave craters. This had none. The trees at the very center were still standing, scorched, stripped, but upright. Whatever caused this had never touched the ground. Kulik spent the next decade returning to Tunguska. mapping the blast zone, interviewing witnesses, collecting soil samples. He never found a meteorite. He never found a crater. By the time he died in a Nazi prisoner of war camp in 1942, the Tunguska mystery was still unsolved, and in the decades that followed, the theories only got stranger. Theory 1. An asteroid air burst. The leading scientific explanation: a stony asteroid, roughly 50 to 80 meters across, entered the atmosphere at 54,000 kilometers per hour. Atmospheric pressure tore it apart and detonated it before impact. An air burst. The Chelyabinsk meteor of 2013 was a smaller version of the same thing, 20 meters across, and it injured 1,500 people. The Tunguska object was up to 4 times wider and released 1,000 times the energy. Theory 2. Nikola Tesla's death ray. Tesla was building a wireless energy transmission system at Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. He believed he could send electrical power through the Earth's atmosphere to any point on the planet. Tesla had asked Robert Peary, the Arctic explorer, to watch for unusual phenomena in the northern skies. And on the night of June 30th, according to Tesla, he tested his device and observed a discharge in the direction of the Arctic. The theory: Tesla fired his transmitter and accidentally leveled 2,000 square kilometers of Siberian forest. There is zero physical evidence for this. But there is one unsettling coincidence. In those same years, Tesla's funding collapsed. Wardenclyffe fell silent, abandoned, never to transmit again. It would be torn down for scrap, and the world would never know what it could do. Theory 3. A microscopic black hole. In 1973, physicists proposed that a primordial black hole, smaller than an atom, but with the mass of a mountain, passed through the Earth at Tunguska. It would have entered the atmosphere, punched straight through the planet, and exited on the other side, somewhere in the North Atlantic. No crater, no fragments, just destruction. There are others. A comet of pure ice, vaporizing completely. An antimatter particle. An alien spacecraft. The Soviet writer Alexander Kazantsev popularized the UFO theory in 1946. And for decades, it was the most widely believed explanation in the Soviet Union. The honest answer, the one most scientists now accept, is the asteroid airburst. But they can't prove it, because after 19 years, 10 expeditions, and over a century of analysis, we never found a single fragment. The Tunguska event matters because it wasn't a one-off. Objects this size enter Earth's atmosphere roughly once every 1 to 300 years. The next one, statistically, is due. We track more than 35,000 near-Earth objects. We've mapped the orbits of thousands of potentially hazardous asteroids. But a 50-meter object is smaller than our most powerful telescopes can reliably detect at long range. If a Tunguska-scale object detonated over a city today, the result would be catastrophic. Not an extinction event, but a city-leveling disaster. And with less than 48 hours of warning, there would be nothing anyone could do. In the Siberian taiga, the forest has grown back. The scars are buried under a century of new growth. But the trees remember. The pattern of destruction, the radial scars still visible from satellite imagery, is still there. And somewhere above us, the next Tunguska object is already on its way. We just don't know when.